I sucked at abstract reasoning when I first started. I was getting in the 30th percentiles, the bottom 30% of people that were doing this section. But I went from getting 30th percentile in abstract to getting 880 out of 900 in my final UCAT exam. And the way that I did that was through strategies. All these IQ style tests, these psychometric tests, people have to write them. And there's only so many patterns that they can use to test you. And if you have a strategic way of knowing each of the patterns, of kind of figuring out what are the most common patterns, what has come up before, and just like methodically being able to eliminate or go through like what the possible patterns are, then you got it. In some of the abstract reasoning questions, you might see something is turning clockwise, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, anti-clockwise, so and so. Once you have the words to describe a pattern, it's so much easier to recognize what that pattern is. I didn't have the words to recognize that pattern when I first started. I'd see some shape, and I can see the shape is moving, somewhere to the right, to the left, and I'd come up with some weird sounding patterns in my head, which wouldn't make sense to anybody. But once I've learned the words to use, the right terms to describe patterns, and the patterns that come up in the UCAT, it was easier, really easy. And I'm gonna show you how I did that and my mnemonic for pretty much getting almost every one of these questions right. So just to get into it, I'm just gonna go into my computer. I'm just gonna cover this whole place with a whiteboard or white screen. Okay. All right, so before I go with my entire mnemonic, I'm going to start with the most basic one, the one that everyone on YouTube basically talks about, which is scans. So whenever you come across, like whenever you are doing the UCAT and doing the exams, that 1 minute time between quantitative reasoning and abstract reasoning, just use that to write down your mnemonics. Write down every pattern that you don't see straight away, so that way you have that there on your whiteboard, because I'm pretty sure you still get whiteboards with the UCAT. So scans. So the first S is for shape. And under shape, you have things like the number of sides. Well, actually not the number of sides, but like what kind of shapes there are. So things like triangles, quadrilaterals, quadrilaterals. It could be something to do with the properties of shapes as well. So it could be something to do with like parallel sides. It could be something to do with the vertexes. The list can go on. Next one, C, that's for color. So color is normally the most obvious one that kind of jumps out to you, because you'll notice whether something is black or something is white or something is gray or some sort of polka dot color. Whenever you see it, kind of verbalize in your head, okay, these are black circles, these are like white squares. A is arrangement. The UCAT loves to give you arrangement questions. And within arrangement, you have things like the position of a shape in relation to another shape. Some of these things, they kind of blend in with each other. So maybe that, for example, all circles are above rectangles. Or maybe all shapes on the left-hand side of a box, whereas the other one, so like set B, might be all shapes on the right-hand side of a box. Or vice versa. N is number. So they probably get you to either count something specific, so maybe they'll get you to count, I guess, number of shapes. The number of angles as well. Maybe if something is odd or even. And S refers to, well, the last S refers to size. Maybe one thing is bigger than another thing. There's like a big square and then a little square, and then there's a big circle and a little circle. Maybe they have like different colors. So pay attention to size, just bigger versus smaller. Another thing with arrangement, just going back to arrangement, is whether something is moving clockwise, whether something is moving anti-clockwise. And sometimes the sequence of like how it's moving, so maybe it's moving 9 degrees or 180 degrees. Actually, sometimes things move like 9 degrees and then they move 90 degrees again and then they move 90 degrees again. So they're going from top, so for example, north to east to south to west. But something can be moving 90 degrees. Sometimes you can describe 90 degrees or a quarter turn as like one turn or like one movement. Maybe it moves about a quarter or like one step, and then it moves 180 degrees after that. So maybe it goes from there to there, and then maybe it moves 270 degrees. So from here, up here, here, and here. So 3 steps. So the UCAT tends to throw you questions like that as well. They won't give you very simple sequential questions. And sometimes, if you ever notice that something is in the same position twice, it normally is moving like 180 degrees. Like, we'll see that when we do some of the questions. Okay, so scans is a basic one, but most of these scan type questions, like as soon as you look at these abstract reasoning question sets, these set A's, B's, and the sequences, they'll pop up to you. You'll see the different colors. You'll see that this is a triangle and this is a pentagon. But the ones that I couldn't get straight away, the ones that always trip me up and that I noticed are in the official UCAT ANZ papers, they fall under another mnemonic. This mnemonic is called peers. And I made this up. So peers scans. So peers, and this would always bug me, is with special numbers like prime numbers. So for me, the P reminds me of prime numbers. It also reminds me of square numbers because they fall under these special numbers. And if you guys can't recall what prime numbers are basically just numbers like 2, 3, 5, because they have the factors of themselves and 1. So 2 and 1 are factors of 2. 3 and 1 are factors of 3. But something like 6, that's a composite number because it's 1 and 6 and 3 and 2. There's more than just those 2 factors. And technically 1, it doesn't actually count as a prime number because it's just got one factor. It doesn't have 2 factors. So it doesn't technically count. Another thing that I haven't seen them throw that often, but they can throw, is triangular numbers. But yeah, so triangular numbers, before I go into triangular numbers, I'll explain square numbers in a second. So square numbers are like 1 squared, which is 1. So 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 times 3, which is 9. And so on and so on. Triangular numbers look like triangles when you lay them out. So you have 1, 3, 6, 10, and they can go on as well. So generally you're adding by 2, you're adding by 3, you're adding by 4, you're adding by 5 next. And you just want to know these like very common patterns. They tend to, like with the UCAT, they can't really test you in a way that really negatively disadvantages people who don't come from an English speaking background. So they give you these patterns that are kind of universal, regardless of which education system you came from. Most of these patterns, like I don't blame you if you don't remember, but most of these patterns, like triangular numbers and square numbers, they were from primary school. So when I'm tutoring some of these kids that I tutor at my tutoring center for, just their maths work, I noticed that they're learning about triangular numbers. I noticed that they're learning about square numbers, and I kind of see the similarities, the curved lines, the straight lines. Funnily enough, it's in like the year 3 syllabus when I'm teaching them. I found that kind of interesting when I came across that. The next one, it isn't the most rare one, it isn't the one that I kind of forget, but it's the one that's the most common, and I don't want to accidentally forget it. And that is even and odd. There's so many even and odd questions in the UCAT for abstract. Like you see it and you're like, oh, this is an odd number of sides, and this one's an even number of sides. Or this is like, 2, 4, and 6. This is like 1, 3, 5, right? They're different. They're even and odd, and yeah. So like, it's or there's an odd number of like circles, and there's like an even number of circles in this one. Just being very sensitive to that particular rule can get you so many easy marks. Usually in abstract, they try and make it hard. They try and have like 2 or 3 rules, especially for the hard questions. The easy questions tend to be even or odd questions. Another one I've noticed is enclosed spaces. So like, imagine you see a circle, and then you see like a square like this, and it's like cut in half. Then you see a triangle, and it's divided into like these thirds. And then you see like, I don't know, like, what's like another shape? Let's just go back to the circle. And let's say that's cut into like quarters again. And let's say it's a triangle again. And actually, you get the picture, right? You have 1 enclosed space, you have 2 enclosed spaces, you have 3 enclosed spaces, you have 4 enclosed spaces. And if you just looked at like the number of sides, that might have thrown you off, especially if they use like really random sides, like a 1-sided shape, a 4-sided shape, a 7-sided shape, and then they go back down. But if you notice the enclosed spaces, that's the pattern. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 enclosed spaces. Maybe the fifth one's going to have 5 enclosed spaces. So maybe if they want to tie in these rules together, they have a odd number of enclosed spaces in one set type, and they have an even number of enclosed spaces in the other set type. So I've seen that occur. Another common pattern that I would always miss is the presence of right angles. So the times where I've gotten a lot of questions wrong is where I've kind of overlooked the number of right angles. And if you ever see a right angle triangle as one of the patterns or one of the elements in the question, be really wary about like right angles. Maybe they want us to look at the right angles. And sometimes right angles, they can be elusive. If you have this barn looking shape with this triangle here, excuse my poor drawing, that's really badly drawn. But imagine I'm gonna try and redraw that. Imagine I had something like this. This technically counts as a right angle. I know it's not to scale, but it technically counts as a right angle. So just be very wary about that. There's 1, 2, 3. They do try and throw those type of questions out there. For S, that's symmetry. Another pretty common one that I didn't want to miss. So whenever you approach these questions, look at peers, look at scans. And as soon as you're in the exam, whenever you get time, write this out. Like write out all these things. Like use the time in between your sets. There's some sets where like, I think, I can't really remember. It's been a couple of years since I've done my last UCAT, but I can't remember exactly. But in the minute breaks, right, rather than just staring up at the ceiling, write down as many patterns as you can, as many tactics as you can. If you have the right strategies for approaching the UCAT, you can drastically improve your scores. Like imagine if you didn't have a way to describe these patterns, it would be so hard for you to do these. So now that we've kind of gone over peer scans, let's do some questions. I'll kind of go through the official questions that they have posted online, and I'll just break down how I would approach them. Like once you practice this so many times, you actually like intuitively it just pops out to you like, oh, it's this pattern, oh, it's a color pattern, oh, it's an arrangement pattern. And it comes naturally to you after you practice so many times. So let's just jump into it. Okay, so looking at this question here, I've already pre-answered this, but let's get rid of that. Let's see. So I look at set A, I look at set B. when you first go through questions, don't worry about doing it timed. If you can't do it untimed, you can't do it timed. So just focus on understanding the patterns, understanding the fundamentals. So for set A, the first thing that comes out to me is the presence of curved lines versus straight lines. So either something is curved or straight. So these are all curved. There's not a single straight line here, whereas these are all straight. Okay, so there's, looking at everything else, there's two shapes here, there's one shape here. So there isn't any like exclusively even shapes in this one, exclusively odd shapes in this one. Except it might be, you could maybe argue that this one might be odd. There's only odd shapes here, but there's odd and even ones here. So usually if it's not like a contrasting pattern, that might not be the pattern that they want. But the main one that they're looking for here is curved versus straight. So this one's going to be curved in set A, this one's going to be straight in set B. So all the shapes here are curved. So I'd go with A. And notice how the color is, they don't really care about the color here. Like you have dark shapes, you also have white shapes. Here you have dark shapes, you also have white shapes. There's nothing special or different about these shapes. And I don't see any significance of there being like a right angle in some of these, because even though this is a right angle triangle, this is definitely, there's no right angle in this diamond. So I'm pretty sure it's this. A, yep. Pentagon, all straight-sided shapes must be set B. And I'm pretty sure that's right. There we go. Now, if you look at this shape or these two shapes, you see that there's curved sides and straight sides. There is no shapes in either set A or B which have both. So you have to put this as neither. It doesn't belong to either one of these patterns, either one of these like sets. So you mean neither. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah. This one it does look kind of weird, but I can tell it's all curved sides. So it must be set A. Okay, that one was also neither because it has straight and it has curved, which we don't see. Okay, with this one, these shapes, let's see what's happening. So you have these shapes here, you have these white circles, diagonals, okay. All right, there is a black colored line in this one. So if I would be looking at the lines in this one, so if I look at the lines here, I can see that anytime there's black, it's facing in a vertical versus horizontal way rather than a diagonal way. Okay, so if it's a different color, then it's going to be in this plus shape. If it's the same color, it's going to be in this X shape in set A. On set B, it's slightly different. If it's the same color, it's a plus. If it's a different color, it's an X. So in this one here, they're the same color and they're an X. That must be A. Because in A, everything that's the same color is in that X formation. They're diagonal to each other instead. So I'll be putting that down as A. Quite certain I'm correct there. This one here, same color, it's a plus. Now, this one's a bit weird because, sure, it is the same color and it is in that plus shape, which does initially seem like it's going to be part of B. However, I don't see any completely white shapes in B. They're all completely black if they're going to be the same color. So I'm going to put down that as neither. I'm 99% sure that's correct. Yes. Okay, different colors in an X shape. That must be set B because different colors here are in an X shape. Different colors in a plus shape. Yes. Another thing that I check for is, do I see the black being horizontal and do I see the white being vertical? And yes, I do see that here. So I know that is like, I know that's going to be correct. Yeah. So it should be A. All black being plus, that has to be B. Okay. Let's check some of these other questions out. So I'm noticing that this black outer part is turning, or it appears to be turning, about 90 degrees each time. So do you notice how this rectangle turns to be here, then it turns to be here? So it's turning 90 degrees each time. So it's going to go from horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical, or another way to think about it is the rectangles being on the left and right, it's being on the top and bottom, left and right, top and bottom. So it must be left and right. Everything here is left and right. So there's nothing, intensely significant about that. Let's see. Black square, black circle, black square, black circle, black square, black circle. All right. So the black square and black circle, they're next to each other. So they're separate, next to each other, separate, next to each other. So I'm also noticing that the circle is moving from here to here each time. So it's moving around one step each time, which means that the black circle should be down here. So I can eliminate A and D. I know that they're wrong because the black circle is not down there. Then the square, the black square is jumping from there down to there. It's staying there, coming back up. Maybe there's something else. Black circle is going to move to there. And it might just be swapping places. Is it swapping places? Let's see. Okay. So the black circle is moving to the left. And then whatever is opposite, it comes down and takes that original spot. So the black circle's here, and then the black square goes from the top down and joins it. Okay, yeah. Black circle's there. The white square is opposite, and it swaps places as it moves. So now the white square is here. Black square's up there. Opposite is the black square. So black circle's up there. Opposite is the black square, so it's going to swap places as it moves around. So I'm assuming that, let me just rub this out a little bit so it's easy to understand. These two are going to swap, I want to say swap, but the shape that's opposite the black circle is going to replace its position as it moves around. So the white square should be on the right, should be down here. So it should be C. Yeah, should be C. Yeah. Okay. So it's a question with a lot of elements, and when there's a lot of elements, it tends to be a number question. So I'd kind of look at the different shapes, and if I just take a kind of third person look at it, I notice that there's different colors. There's black, there's polka dot, there's striped, there's white. And I notice that there is 1, 2, 3. There's 3 black shapes in set A. So I'll probably write that underneath. So 3 black. And there's only 2 black in set B. There's 2 white here, 2 white here, 2 white and polka dot, 2 white, a polka. Oh, okay. So in these ones, there's always a polka dot. Always 1 polka. Here, it seems to be at least 1. Well, I would say there's always 1 striped. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if that's enough information to answer my question. I wonder if there's any third one, actually. There's two whites on both sides. I don't think that's significant enough for me to write down. Poker. Yeah. Okay. Could be one, could be two. All right. So there's two polka dots here. There's two blacks there. That doesn't make sense because two blacks should be set B. However, there's no striped, and I need to have at least always one. There's always one striped shape in this, so it has to be neither. Yeah, so it is neither. Over here, two striped, two black, two white. Clearly going to be B because there's two black. There's always going to be at least one striped, and there's two white, so it must be B. Then we got one polka dot, one striped, two black, two white. So two black, always one striped. Polka dot must be B. All right, three black, two white, three black, two white, and one polka. That must be A. Two striped, two white, one black. Because there's one black and none of these have one black, I know that this can't be either one. It must be neither. Okay. Let's see. All right. So if you look at this shape here, or this sequence, I always look for some sort of movement, and I can see that there's an arrangement one here. So I can tell that the arrow here is moving 1, 2 spaces anti-clockwise. So let me get rid of this old working out. So outer arrow moving 2 steps anti-clockwise. Okay, so 1, 2, that gets you there. 1, 2, that gets you there. 1, 2, that gets you there. So I'm assuming that the next one, 1, 2, should be. Oh, why did I do that? 1, 2 should be in the top left. So it's not going to be B. It's not going to be D. Now I need to figure out what the pattern is in the middle. So the bottom is black. Top becomes black. Top becomes black. Both black. Okay. So it's alternating between the bottom only being black, then everything being black, then the top being black, then everything being black. And if it follows the same pattern, then it should be the arrow on the bottom being black. So it must be A. So with practice, you can just look at these and you can kind of just break down the different patterns. I'll see if I can find a much harder one. Some of these are okay at the moment. So it's A. Yeah. Scan through. This one's okay. Yeah, so this is one of those questions where if I'm seeing clear arrangements, like horizontally, clear arrangements vertically, I know that this must be some sort of line of symmetry question, the symmetry type of question. So I can see that the line of symmetry is horizontal in the case of, that was weird. Line of symmetry is horizontal in this case. In set A, and then line of symmetry is vertical in set B. So the symmetry questions, they tend to be very easy questions. So looking at this, I can see that there's no line of symmetry vertically or horizontally. So I know that this is probably going to be neither. I can just move on to the next question. That was an obvious one. This one clearly is going to be a horizontal line of symmetry. Therefore, it falls into set A. This one also happens to be a horizontal line of symmetry, so it's also set A. This one is neither, and I'll explain why. If you cut it, I probably shouldn't have rubbed that out. If I have it over here, you can see that it's not actually symmetrical, because if it was symmetrical horizontally, this part and this part would both be colored, but they're not. So it's not going to be a set A question or set A test shape. And if I organize this horizontally, it's definitely not a mirror image reflecting. If I organize this vertically, it's definitely not a test shape that fits the vertical one either. So it's not set B. It must be neither. Quite certain. Yeah. But that's essentially how it works. So you just have to practice as many questions as you can using the Pierce scans formula, and that would help you drastically improve your mark in abstract. It just gives you all these, I guess, ways of describing the patterns. And you notice that I'm normally not wasting my time writing out a really big sentence of, oh, this is exactly how this pattern occurs. There's not much utility in that. Find a simple, short way to write out the pattern. You can either write it out like on a piece of, like on the whiteboard that they give you on the day, on a piece of paper when you're studying, or just keep it in your mind. But if there's too much happening in your mind, it might be hard for you to think. So just write it down instead. But you can see how you can just apply those rules. And if you ever come across a strange rule, I know that there was a really strange rule at the beginning of this test, actually. If I go to the first question, yeah, this is a really strange rule. Whenever you come across unorthodox rules, list them down somewhere, like write them down. So with this one here, if I look at set A, the thing that really jumps out to me is the black circles. So I'm assuming that around the black circles, something of importance is happening. So here, you have this shape here, and there's a black circle next to it. And then in the next one, the shape has changed positions. So the black circle has made it turn clockwise by 90 degrees. So it's turned clockwise 90 degrees. Yeah, it's turned clockwise 90 degrees. And this one here is turned clockwise 90 degrees as well. This one here, turn clockwise 90 degrees. Go to the next one. And then the next one has also caused it to turn clockwise again 90 degrees. So I know that in this case, the black dot, or the dot, turns 90 degrees. Here, 90 degrees clockwise. For B, it appears that it turns it anti-clockwise. So I'm noticing it going from here to here. It's turning around. It's turning, going from the top right to being on the top left instead. So that's going to be dots turns 90 degrees anti-clockwise. I have a feeling I might have said anti-clockwise for one of the last questions instead of clockwise. So I'll probably edit something in there to say it's supposed to be clockwise. Okay. Let's have a look at this. So this one has shifted it clockwise, then clockwise again. Okay, so it must be A. And for the next one, it has shifted it anti-clockwise. So notice how it's spinning the opposite direction now. So anti-clockwise, that's B. It's going clockwise and then clockwise again, so it must be A. But you get the picture. This is a strange looking like pattern, or set A and set B, but if we still use Pierce scans, it still accounts for every pattern that they can give you. And if you have that mnemonic where you kind of summarize all the major patterns, then you're set for abstract. It's just a matter of being able to identify them quickly. And with practice and with that mnemonic, you'll be able to. So I hope this video helped. If you liked it, leave a like. If you've come this far, maybe like write something in the comments being like, hey, I made it to the end or something like that. So yeah, if you have any specific questions as well about, I guess, how to approach the UCAT, just let me know in the comments, or just email me. I think my email might be like on my like YouTube channel somewhere. Just like, yeah, just like shoot a message. I'm more than happy to help you guys out. So yeah, have a good one.